All right. It's my great pleasure to share some perspectives on this topic. My background is from micromanagement, so my view will be focusing on individual organizations and each individuals and how AI will impact those organizations. And many conclusions shared by our speakers, I agree very much. And here I have one observation is that indeed AI gonna dramatically impact the landscape of organization and individuals. But based on my contact with many individual organizations, I see a polarized phenomenon. On the one hand, we see some organizations really leverage the power of AI to create great values, but the majority of organizations are still endorse the current status quo. So that's a problem. We see the potential, but we see the many organizations have not yet adopted the AI to dramatically improve their productivity. So we're gonna dive into those perspectives and to try to understand why that's the case and what can we go forward. On the one extreme, as Mr. Dai has mentioned, there currently have emerged some really small companies but create a huge value. So one example is Perplexity AI, who are doing AI search. So currently valued at over $14 billion with less than 300 people. And another example is Cursor AI, with create values like $9 billion with around 30 employees. So these are the new forms of organization. Certainly, the logic behind this organization structure and the talent profiles will be dramatically different than what we see in some established company. But the current problem is some established company, right? Because what we see here is Perplexity AI and Cursor AI, they develop their organization structure based on AI technology. They were born in the year that AI technology already there. But the majority of companies, they born pre-AI technology. So they have their existing structures. So there are some problems of organizational change and the inertia. So one case I want to share is that we have surveyed some companies. They are focusing on developing computer programmers. So the majority of their employees are software engineers. So you can imagine that the AI have huge impact on those jobs. So they have high hope. So they expect that if they adopt AI in their organizations, they expect the dramatic productivity gain in their companies. But what they share with us is they run some A/B testing within the organization, and they let every employees to use Cursor AI or ChatGPT, whatever, that to facilitate their doing some coding stuff. And they found their productivity gain is just about 10% to 15%. It's way below their expectation. The problems, what we discussed with them is that they didn't change the structure of the organization. So for example, how they develop a program is still there's many different independent computer software engineers, and each have a co-pilot. So in that case, you can imagine, someone, they gain greatly and some become a bottleneck. And also that introduce some additional cost in this whole process. So without transform the organizational structure, and we did not see the productivity gain at a large scale. So that's the problem we see current stage is it's called like a piecemeal operation, optimization. Is that everyone, you access ChatGPT or whatever, DeepSeek, and that increase your own productivity. But how that individual productivity transform into organizational productivity. There's a joke from Lenovo, and they talk about, okay, now each employee is with AI, they only need to work 6 hours per day instead of 8 hours. But we didn't see that 2 hours reflected in organizational levels. So that we need to change the structure from the individual have their own assistant, but how AI or like agents or AI technologies embedded in organizational structures. So there are going to be more complex forms in how human and AI collaborate, and how AI versus AI collaborate, and how human and human collaborate. So from that perspective, if each individual have their own assistant, it's going to be extremely difficult to replace jobs. Right? So because the job structure, as we discussed today, is based on division of the labor. So organizations' goal is to perform a bundle of activities and tasks, and those tasks and activities are bundled based on the skills, and then that forms the jobs. Certainly, if we want to say like AI replace jobs, that would be difficult. For certain tasks, they're going to be extremely difficult for AI to do, but it's extremely easy for human to do. So, but if we change perspective, we think about how AI is not replace jobs, but replace tasks. So for example, here, it shows certain tasks for a job will be automated, and the certain tasks will be enhanced by AI, and the certain tasks, maybe in the future, there will be a very small percentage is individual independently carry out. So when the AI going to change jobs at tasks levels, so there going to be requirement is how we rebundle the tasks, right? Certain tasks will be separate from the current the job descriptions, become fully automated or workflow, and the certain tasks will be dedicated to human and AI collaborations, and the certain tasks leave to human independently to do so. So if we look back to the history, a lot of people consider the AI as new industrial revolution. But if you look at the history, that when like electricity to replace steam engine, it took about 30 to like 40 years to see massive productivity gain. And there's some analyses, technology development, but they point out one issue is the organizational structure. So for example, these are the pictures, it's the factories from the first industrial revolution age. And how they structured in that way is very different from the factories with what we see today. You can see it's very horizontal structured because they structure in the way to best utilize the steam engine. You need to have big steam engine, and the whole process is how to best leverage that power. So when organizations realize that, then they restructure the manufacturing flow, and the best leverage the electricity, become a decentralized, right? They optimize the workflow. That's where we see the productivity gain. I think if we take that metaphor and put it into the generative AI context, the question is, does the technology follow the structure, or we need to change the structure to follow the technology? So that's the huge difference between the AI native organization, that's a startup, they were born in the age of the generative AI, versus some established companies. Right? It's very difficult for them to change their existing structure, which is based on division of the labor. So for example, this is a typical the productivity development teams. So they have like different function areas to move to, or like what we call like a super individuals, a few cool members. They leverage the AI of power, and they build their AI tools. They optimize some task flows. So if organizations gonna change it in that way, I think that's the future directions. Like fewer people, smaller organizations, leaner teams. But what we can see here is what the talents, the capability or requirement or skill for those two individuals is going to be very different from the traditional based on division of the labor. So we did some studies. We found that one interesting findings is what we call like the skill need to be complete updated. It's not like learning new skills. It's complete kind of reshape what's the required skills or talents needed in the new year. We know, like from the organizational perspective, the best predictor of future performance is past performance. So what we call is performance consistency. So here are some studies findings, preliminary findings. We found when there's no AI, we see their performance consistency. And then when there's AI, there's a performance consistency. For example, if I use AI, I perform task A and task B, and you can see high correlation between these tasks. But what's interesting is when cross between their performance consistency just disappeared. So for example, in our lab, we ask some people to perform tasks independently and then switch to perform tasks with AI. And we look at how their performance correlates. So that's on the far left, is we don't see that performance consistency. So that means in the previously, we have the standards or recruitment standards or performance evaluation standards, what qualify as a good employee. They may not be the good employees in the new settings or in new context. So that's gonna push us to rethink, okay, what's still valuable for human? You know, even with the AI, the human stay an essential part in this process. So I picture some scenarios. You know, before the AI, particularly for knowledge workers, the 100% work will be done by a human. But if you divided that skill set into different components, I would say there's maybe 20% is still with thinking, planning, coming up with ideas or creativity. But 80% is about execution, right? Make it better. Thinking about how we write a paper. You know, we can come up with ideas in one day, but it takes us like half a year to just write up that paper. You know, like we need to like polish sentence by sentence, right? But when we have the AI, so our division of labor may be changed. You know, we still can really focus on that 20% of like thinking, planning, ideas, creativity. But 80% could leave to AI to automate this so-called craftsmanship. You know, each time industrial revolution gonna change craftsmanship. But the generative AI, I think, is gonna change the craftsmanship of knowledge workers. Like, for example, writing papers as one example. And if we move forward, in the next scenario is as AI become more powerful, it really comes to like a human probably contribute time-wise 1%, the key component. But AI can do 99%. Right? So that's gonna make us to rethink, so what's this 1% or 20% are extremely valuable. You know, there's a two relationship when we talk about the human and the technology that's called automation and augmentation. So traditionally, there's the pyramid. So talk about the skills. You know, we generally, when we hire people or in job market, we're looking at several criteria: your education level, your number of years of experience, and what's your major. So we call like if you don't have education, you have low skills, and if you have higher education, right major, and years of experience, you become an expertise, become an expert. Traditionally, technology is, regarding the automation, is bottom up. It's gonna influence these lower skill jobs. That's no longer the case for the generative AI. You know, for generative AI, it's gonna target everything. You know, for example, I think the AI is writing better papers than many of my doctor students, right? That's just a plain truth, right? So everyone has impact. And another augmentation, AI can lift the people who don't have good education, who don't have skills, but if they have other skills, right? If they're smart, if they have good logic and good sense and the creativity. So for those, they can do, those in the middle, they can do some higher level jobs. For example, I know some coding skill. With Cursor AI, I can do some complex tasks. Which leaves a question, is what's the value of expertise? Right? The traditional way, They receive years of education. I think that's what we need to think about is what kind of skills can be automated, can be replaced by AI, and what skills are actually enhanced by AI. I think if you think about like writing skills, execution skills, that can be automated by AI. But these meta-cognitive abilities, that really can be enhanced by the AI. So I think what traditionally we evaluate people based on skill levels, that's going to be changed. Traditionally we still have different majors and different experience, but nowadays experience may, in some cases, become a liability. So that kind of speaks to one study we have conducted is regarding the value of called like specialist versus generalist. So that's from a human capital theory, who will be more valuable. Traditionally, job market typically the favor generalist and a specialist. But with AI, I think the specialist will, the generalist will win. Why? It's break down the professional barriers. Like I don't know how to code, but with the AI, I can learn how to code. I don't write English. Now I can write English papers. So here's some empirical findings. For example, without AI, you can see the high specific human capital generally perform well because of the barriers of the skills. But when there's AI in place, so that gap disappears. That's the opposite of the general human capital. So what's the next? How the AI will evolve in organizations? So I think there will be 3 stages. So first is just to leverage a foundational model. It's called the chatbot, because that speaks the problem is individual thing. Is everyone have their own AI tools. But then we need to move to agent, because the agent is not for people, it's for tasks. Each agent is targeting either single task or a workflow. So when organizations have many different agents or agentic workflows, it will automate tasks, and then it will change organizational structure. So who will make the AI agents? I want to give one example is that writing papers. Just to clarify, I no longer write papers. So AI writes my papers. So how so? I design some systems, like try to let the AI to write papers. For example, this is one agent for me to write papers is how to write introductions. We know the introduction probably carries most weight in the research process. So this is, I figure out a way and to summarize a methodology and to guide AI to write the introduction. And then I can share this agent with all my doctor students. So it's no longer an individual thing, right? It's become an organizational asset. So essentially, when the AI and organization, how they combine is to transform this tacit knowledge and to codify this knowledge and combine with AI in the form of AI agents. So that's where the organization will see changes. It's never going to be so, okay, everyone use AI because the human is a liability. So not everyone will master the skills of how to use AI. But when you can have a few expertise and then to codify their existing tacit knowledge and then combine with AI, that's where we'll see the big changes in organizations. So AI agents currently are fundamentally not about the technology. Essentially, it's work design. So work design is how you structure the work processes and how you combine the implicit knowledge with the AI technology. So eventually, and how organizations will transformation, I think it's gonna be a bottom-up approach. That will be different from the traditional last wave. It's called digitalization. It's top-down and planned. because the AI always starts as the task levels, workflow levels. So when the task has been changed, and then job will be changed, and eventually organization will be changed. All right, considering time, it's very delighted to share some perspectives. Thank you.